Billy, big weekend for LSU with another pair of commitments from a couple of four-star guys. So I'm going to let you go through that, and then we'll kind of set the stage for where they are moving forward. But let's talk first about Chris Hilton and then Keanu Koht.
Yeah, Chris Hilton, local area prospect here, top 50 overall prospect, and one of the best wide receivers in the country. And he's been on the scene for quite some time now, and he caught that game-winning touchdown pass for Zachary in the state championship. He won a state championship as a freshman in the high jump, so he has the athletic credentials to really star at the next level, and he's exactly kind of what you look for in that regard. And since then, he's picked up a ton of offers. He's been considered a long-time LSU lean to stay close to home and play for the Tigers, and he fits really well with what they're trying to do with this spread offense. And he can play in the slot, and he's dynamic, he's explosive. So he opted to go ahead and make his college commitment. And this is a huge one for the Tigers. This wide receiver class is big time.
Billy getting a lot of defensive ends in this class, and that's to be expected when you go from a 3-4 to a 4-3 defense. You've now got multiple defensive ends, not only in this class, but over the last couple of weeks, you picked up some really nice four-star defensive ends. Do you think they're done recruiting that position? Because it does seem like they're trying to find a new wave of talent there.
Yeah, I think that there's a chance that they'll keep recruiting some other guys just because I think, one, with this pandemic, you never know who is going to drop off or who's kind of solid or not. I mean, nobody's really been able to take any visits, and that was kind of the thing with Keanu Koht out of Vero Beach, Florida. He was wanting to try and take a visit to LSU and kind of wrap this thing up in a more official and in-person manner, but he had kind of quietly committed to the Tigers earlier in the summer, and his family kind of wanted to do that, take a visit and check it out and then go from there. But he had already kind of told other schools that he was off the market and committed to LSU, and he's been a huge riser for us on 24/7 Sports. He's one of the biggest risers of the spring, and he's exactly kind of how you draw up a defensive end in the 4-3. So a huge pickup for LSU. I think they'll keep kind of recruiting some other guys, but I think for the most part they're probably done with this position.
Billy, as we look at them with 15 hard commitments right now, try to get the shape of the rest of the class. We start with Louisiana first. So Mason Smith, obviously the five-star defensive tackle from Houma, Brian Thomas, a wide receiver from Walker, and Sage Ryan, the safety from Lafayette Christian. Anybody else right now that you would say has a definite committable offer out of Louisiana that they're looking at?
Probably not off the top of my head right now. They've got a lot of guys that I could see them moving on and offering later on in the process. Jordan Gilbert out of Baton Rouge U High, or Travion Hargrove out of Ruston, the running back. There's some other names that we could see them move on in Louisiana. But overall, I think right now that's kind of the crew that you're looking at for the most part in the state.
Billy, we talked about last week, or 2 weeks ago, Caleb Williams, he was going to probably commit to Oklahoma. He does that over the weekend. But we talked about LSU seemed like they picked their guy. Seems like they have a mold at quarterback that they want to continue to follow, right? You got these coaches' kids with Joe Burrow, and you've got Nussmeier. You've got, Brad Johnson's son and Max Johnson, and down the line, right? You got Jamie Howard's son. Seems like they have got a pedigree that they want to stay with, right? They want to stay with someone who's probably been coached up his entire life, and that's what they want to move forward with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, gosh, the run that they've had with Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard, those are two really good ones to start with. And then we look ahead to 2023, and there's a big-time quarterback that some people will recognize his last name in the New Orleans area with Arch Manning coming up, and he's going to be a highly, highly recruited prospect that LSU will be after. So, yeah, that's the mold they're going with for the most part, and they've hit on two really, really good ones in Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard. And the thing about them is they've been recruiting their tails off already for LSU. Both are really active in that regard, and that's what you want to see from your quarterback.
They were talking about how Lincoln Riley has put together his plan when he got Caleb Williams to sort of get this natural progression of quarterbacks to go from potentially Baker Mayfield to Kyler Murray to Jalen Hurts to now Spencer Rattler, and then forward to Caleb Williams. And you can see where LSU's pattern is going to go here from hopefully what will happen, this year, into, the Max Johnson, followed by Walker Howard, and then if it's Arch Manning or maybe Eli Holstein, either one. But what happens when one thing goes astray? One guy from a lower class beats out the guy from the higher class. It just seems like you can set things up so perfectly for quarterbacks, and it can change so quickly.
Absolutely, and if all things go well for Miles Brennan, it's going to be a nice, really strong 2-year run for him, and then off to the NFL. That's the plan, but we'll see how it pans out. There's a lot of people that are high on Miles and what he's going to be able to do in this offense with this talent, and I'm one of those people. And then you look at Max Johnson, T.J. Finley, Garrett Nussmeier, Peter Parrish is gone, so there's kind of a void there. But yeah, if Garrett comes in and wins the job at some point early on, which is tough to do as a true freshman, but he's going to come in and compete. That could throw it all out of whack. But I think Max and TJ are going to have kind of a leg up on him when they come to compete for it. Walker Howard will be there, if I've got my years right, to compete for that job after Miles Brennan as well. And that's about as talented as a bunch as we've probably seen at LSU in a while, where everyone seems to be high on most of those guys. And so they'll have quite the competition in 2022 if it all pans out with Miles Brennan. But if it doesn't, it's going to be chaotic. But I think one thing Ed Orgeron's done is he's always been about improving the roster wherever he feels like it might be needed. And if they realize over the next 2 years or so that they don't have the guy on campus or they need to address the position, they will.
Catching up with Billy Embody here on Hanging with Hester and Hanny. Billy, is offensive line the one position that you feel like LSU is probably going to try to finish the strongest with?
Yeah, offensive line and in the state of Louisiana, like you guys mentioned earlier, I think that's kind of the key to rounding this thing out. They've got to probably add a true corner, a high-level corner as well. But, yeah, offensive line, especially at the offensive tackle position, because you've got Dare Rosenthal, Marcus Dumerville. Looks like Xavier Hill is going to get a chance at offensive tackle, Cam Wire, and that's after Austin Deculus leaves after this year. So they've got to address this position because there's a lot of unknown, and so you want to bring in a lot of competition to compete and try and make the group better. And I think they could try and go for as many as 3 offensive tackles and kick one inside when the dust settles from that competition. But I think offensive line is a huge piece of this class and what it's going to be looked at down the line.
Billy, we were talking earlier about the challenges of being able to evaluate rising freshmen and sophomores at this point, because these are kids that they would usually have in camp. These are kids that can undergo huge body transformation sometimes in a single year. What's your best read on how they're trying to evaluate some of these underclassmen, these rising freshmen and sophomores that they can't see in person this summer?
It's really tough. It's really, really tough. I think a lot of it goes back to probably working with Tommy Moffitt and him giving the report of who's doing really well, who's going to be strong enough to compete right away, who's strong enough to play right away, and then kind of go from there. And because I think you're going to have to streamline fall camp, and it's going to be kind of a hit the ground running thing for this team, and they're going to have to adjust. And one thing that I think the staff could kind of save themselves some time is by having kind of a plan already for some of these freshmen, whether they see them as potentially redshirting or playing right away. So we know that a BJ Ojulari, Eric Gilbert, Keishawn Butte, guys like Eli Ricks, guys like that, those are ones that they're going to pencil in and say, okay, we're going to play them right away. And then there are others that they might need to take a pause and say, all right, we've got to get more guys reps and get the veterans ready to go and give them some work. So we might have to kind of scale back a little bit with some of these freshmen, more so than maybe we normally would over the course of a regular camp or summer. So it's a balancing act, I'm sure, but I think Coach O's really relied on Tommy Moffitt and that whole staff to kind of give them the blueprint for a lot of these guys early on.
Billy, with the dead period getting extended till August the 31st, we know we have an early signing period in December, which has in fact become the signing period. Does anything happen with that December signing period? And do you think we'll get a dead period extended really throughout the season?
I am in the belief that you'll see the dead period extended throughout the season, and part of the reason why is, one, we're having debates over whether fans are going to be in the stands or whatnot, and the minimizing risk for the colleges and especially the teams, bringing outside people in from around the country for official visits, unofficial visits. That's going to be one of the ways they can minimize the risk of maybe an outbreak within the team during the season. So I do think they wait until after the season for visits, and I think there's going to be a dead period. Now on the what was your second question there?
With the early signing period, is it going to get altered in any way, really?
I'm not sure on that. I could see a world where they push it back, but at the same point of it, the whole idea was that if you're ready to sign and that's the place you want to go, you can sign. So I would think it stays in place. There's some of these guys in the class and around the country and other classes that are ready to sign right now, barring a major change with the coaching staff or something. So I don't think that part of it changes. I just think some of these kids are going to end up just taking it out to February, though.
Billy, before we let you go, anything new on basketball recruiting? I'll just I'll leave it open ended and let you take it from there.
Yeah, the one name we've been monitoring has been 5-star center Moussa Cisse, and it's gotten murky. There's been some confidence on LSU side in the past, and a ton of confidence on LSU side in the past, and now Memphis is kind of seems like they're going to keep him in the city of Memphis where he goes to high school, and so it's I don't know if it's done, but it's not trending well. So we'll kind of be back to just looking at who's coming back from the NBA draft and who's going to be rejoining the team next year. I think more than anything.
Could have blocked Dick Vitale on Twitter. That might have helped some things. I didn't say that out loud. Billy Embody from Go247. Thanks a bunch. What you guys got in the pipeline? What's coming up next?
Man, I think we're going to do a big reset on where everything is for LSU recruiting, kind of what's next, what to expect, because we've seen a flurry of activity over these last few weeks, and it's as good of a time as ever to hit the reset button and let everyone know where things stand.
Go247.com. Billy, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.